Here's the truth. Having wealth isn't enough. Without a solid estate plan, high net worth families can lose millions to taxes, lawsuits, and family disputes. And believe me, it happens more often than you might think. Today, I'm going to share the 6 biggest estate planning mistakes that affluent families make, and more importantly, how you can avoid them. At Smith Barid, we've worked with hundreds of successful families to protect millions of dollars in generational wealth. And today, I'll share with you some of the biggest lessons that we've learned from the real world trenches. I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of these estate planning guys. Stick with me because one of the mistakes that we're going to talk about has even cost families their private businesses, and it's completely avoidable if you know what to watch for. Far too many high net worth families think a simple will is all they need, but here's the problem. A will guarantees your estate will go through probate. Probate is a slow, public, and often very expensive court process. A will only directs how assets are handled after your death. It does nothing to protect you during your lifetime or to avoid court involvement in your affairs. If privacy, speed, and cost savings are important to your family, then you need a fully funded living trust and the supporting documents to match. Otherwise, your family is going to face the hassles of having to go through the probate process and the expense of that. And let me tell you, I've had families who spent north of $40,000 to have us probate an estate. I've seen all kinds of disputes because one family member didn't think they were treated the way they should have been, and it's very easy to file a will contest in probate court. So if this is already opening your eyes, hit that like button. It helps us get the message out to more families that need to hear this information. Now, the second mistake that we see a lot of times families make is they create a living trust, but they fail to fund it. So setting up the trust is a great start, but if you don't transfer your assets into the trust, it's basically an empty box. So think of it like having a treasure chest, but you don't put any of the treasure in the treasure chest. This is actually very interesting. I can't tell you how many times I've seen families that came to us, they had beautiful trust documents that were created by other attorneys, but they never titled any of their real estate, their bank accounts, their investment accounts, business interests. They never put any of that into the trust. So the result of that, their estate still winds up having to go through probate because the assets weren't properly titled into the trust. So for example, if your home still sits in your personal name instead of the trust, then that's going to have to go through the court system in order to be passed to your heirs and beneficiaries. And that brings on the possibility of long time delays, unnecessary expenses, potential fighting amongst your beneficiaries. The third mistake that we see people make, and this happens all the time, is people don't update their estate plan as their life changes. Estate planning, unfortunately, is not a set it and forget it kind of task. Life changes, and your plan has to change with the changes in your life. So if you get married, if you get divorced, when you have children, when you have grandchildren, those are the types of events that would necessitate updates to your trust. The other thing that happens is the law changes. And you might not be aware of changes in the law, but your attorney should be. And so you should be sitting down with your estate planning attorney once a year, maybe once every 3 years, just to review everything and make sure that your plan is properly aligned with what your current wishes are and properly aligned with what the current law is. So any major events like marriages, divorce, births, deaths, sale of a business, all of those things require updates to your plan, and you should proactively reach out to your estate planning attorney when something like that happens. And then I also recommend that you have your plans reviewed every 2 to 3 years just to make sure that there hasn't been some change in the law that is going to necessitate changes in your trust documents, your other estate planning documents. I mean, imagine that you've left an ex-spouse or an ex-business partner as a beneficiary in your trust and you didn't update your plan. That's not going to be the result you want for your family. Now, the fourth thing that I see families make mistakes with is asset protection planning. So let's face it, we face a lot more risks now, more lawsuits, more creditors, more complexity, and asset protection is not just for ultra wealthy folks or celebrities, because business owners, physicians, real estate investors, everybody needs a strategy like LLCs or family limited partnerships or domestic asset protection trust. And those types of specialized asset protection vehicles can help to protect your wealth against lawsuits, creditors, or even divorces, or maybe your kids getting divorced. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think I want my son-in-law or daughter-in-law to be the one that winds up with the bulk of my estate. So if you own a business in your personal name, you could be one lawsuit away from losing everything. So it's important that you get those asset protection things right so that we can protect those assets that you're transferring into the trust. The fifth thing that I see is that people just completely ignore the estate tax. Now, the truth is that the federal estate tax in recent years has been very generous. We have extremely high exemptions at this point. $13.9 million this year. So very high exemptions. Not a lot of people are affected by that. But the reality is that the estate tax is going to change. It's going to drop dramatically in 2026 if Congress fails to do anything. And if you don't plan now, then millions of dollars of your estate can be taxed unnecessarily. So it's important to take a look at the estate tax and have a conversation with your attorney, find out what he or she thinks, think about what your thoughts on it are. And if you feel like, you're concerned about these changes that are coming with respect to the estate tax, then now's the time to take some action on that and to potentially transfer assets to family members or into trust that can help you avoid some of the estate tax ramifications that will happen if the estate tax drops like it's supposed to in 2026. So, there are things like, with respect to that estate tax, things like lifetime gifting strategies, irrevocable life insurance trusts, family limited partnerships, and charitable planning options that you want to raise that with your estate planning attorney. Now, the last mistake that I see people frequently make that can really just wreck all of your plans is choosing the wrong trustees and fiduciaries. So here's a crucial but often overlooked mistake. Picking the wrong person to manage your estate or trust can wreck everything. So the question I always ask is, would you trust this person to run your company the way you would? Or would you trust them to take care of all of your financial affairs if you were in a coma for 6 months? And if the answer to that question is not a resounding yes, then you need to back up, think about who you're naming as the trustee, and think about whether a professional option, a trust company or a bank trust department or, some other person, you can use an attorney or a CPA, would be the right choice instead of a family member that you are thinking of. Being a trustee is not an honor. It's a big responsibility. So if you pick someone who isn't organized, financially savvy, emotionally grounded, able to communicate well with others, then you could set your family up for major conflicts down the road. So just consider whether it might be a good idea to use a professional trustee or a corporate fiduciary, or at least appointing co-trustees to balance out responsibilities. That may save your family a lot in the long run. Now, if you're serious about getting your estate plan right, we've created a free estate planning checklist that you can download. The link is right below in the description, and it's the perfect place to start making sure that your family is protected. So to summarize, today we've covered 6 major mistakes that I've seen people make in their estate plans. The first one is relying only on a will, failing to fund your trust, not updating your estate plan after major life events, poor asset protection, ignoring looming estate tax changes, and picking the wrong trustees. Each of these mistakes, whether together or separate, can cost your family a lot if they're not clearly addressed and not handled the right way. If you found this video helpful, I'd invite you to check out some of our other videos on estate planning. You'll find a lot more tips and strategies to help protect everything that you've spent a lifetime and worked so hard to build. Thank you. I'm Mike Smith with the Estate Planning Guys.